Thank you for joining us while we're looking at God's Word. Jesus is still talking to the scribes and Pharisees who had trouble believing in him. This actually started in the previous chapter, and we still have the same audience that he's talking to. This is John chapter 10, verses 17 and 18, a wonderful statement about what Jesus' mission was all about. I want to go to the Jordan River for a second, and I believe it was in Matthew, and it may be even, no, it wasn't in Luke. It's just in Matthew that when Jesus came to John the Baptist and he was baptized, he said, "This is to fulfill all righteousness," which would mean the righteousness of you and me, which means the only way for that to happen is for him to put his righteousness on us, because we've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. And so for that to take place, our old life has to cease and our new life has to begin with the righteousness of Jesus on it. And so when he came to the Jordan River, he was baptized, put him under the water, brought him back up, a picture of death and resurrection. And he was saying, this is what my mission is all about. He did not do his mission until he was baptized at the Jordan River. And when he was baptized at the Jordan River, there came a voice from heaven. And it said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." God was saying he has committed himself to the mission, and I love him tremendously for the way that he loves mankind, and he did what I sent him to do. And so we need to understand that the Father always loved the Son, but that he expresses that love even more when his Son commits himself to take the sins of the world upon him. And so, having said that, that makes it make a little more sense here in John chapter 17, when Jesus says this, "For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay my life down that I may take it again." He wasn't saying he loves me because I do this, but he says his love blossoms even more because of what I'm doing. I'm laying my life down. Now the next verse. "No one has taken it away from me, but I lay it down on my own initiative. I have the authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. This commandment I received from my Father." And so the commandment was, we're not going to scratch mankind, but instead we're going to redeem them. And in order to do that, their sins have to be punished. And so one of the persons of the Trinity is going to go take care of that. He, as God in the flesh, is going to take the punishment that mankind deserves upon himself. Then he's going to be buried, and then he's going to be resurrected with that not on his account anymore. Now it says in Romans chapter 6 that when you become a believer in Jesus Christ, that God identifies with you what Jesus did for you. He said, what Jesus did for you, you did with him. Romans chapter 6 says we were buried with him by baptism into death. He was raised by the glory of the Father, and we're raised to newness of life. In Colossians chapter 3, I believe it's verse 3, you died, and your life is hid with Christ in God. And so that's what born again is all about. The old life stops and the new life begins. And Jesus said, I have the authority to lay my life down, and I have the authority to take it back up again. The night before he was crucified, when Peter whacked the ear off of a servant of the high priest, Jesus said to Peter, put your sword up. I can call 6 legions of angels and stop all of this. You understand the authority to lay it down. No one was taking his life. He was laying it down. But he never did say, I'm laying it down, without saying, I'm taking it back up again. Going back to chapter 2, remember, he drove people out of the temple. He did that twice, once at the beginning of his ministry and once at the end. They said, by what authority do you do this? What sign do you give us? He said, destroy this temple, speaking of his body, and in 3 days I'll raise it back up. That's what his ministry was all about. You get to John chapter 12, and Jesus said, for this purpose I came into the world, It's what his ministry was all about. I'm so grateful that God didn't throw us away, but instead he redeemed us with his son's willing death and powerful resurrection. Have a great day.